We're like excited that it's a Category 3. I mean, this is still a major hurricane. Now, any kind of reduction in the wind speed is going to be a good thing. However, it's not a great thing because as the storm leaves Cuba, it's just temporary. It's likely going to re-intensify back to Category 4 status. So you can't let your guard down yet, but we do have the winds a little bit lower because it's been interacting with Cuba, and it's now moving a little bit slower as far as the forward motion, but it's still expected to take that northerly turn later today. The forecast cone, the forecast path has shifted a little bit more to the west. Notice, Brevard and Volusia right along the coast, not in this anymore. But again, don't let your guard down there. You are still going to be dealing with these rain bands, these very gusty winds, tropical storm force for sure. It's just that you're not right next to the actual center of the storm, which is where we'll have the 140-mile-per-hour winds near the eye, the 115-mile-per-hour winds as the storm heads up the Gulf Coast Sunday and Monday. So we are on the right side of the eye, and that means even though Volusia and Brevard and Flagler counties, at least partially anyway, are not in the official forecast cone for the hurricane, we're still in this zone for the increased threat for tornadoes here. Now, the tornadoes in a tropical system usually don't last very long. They're usually really small and they're wrapped with rain, and so they're difficult to see. So sometimes we don't even see them on the radar because of, they're very difficult to pick up on. But also, this is going to be happening at night. When the storm comes through, it's going to be overnight Sunday into early Monday. And so it will be dark. So they're usually small tornadoes, F0s, EF2s. However, that can do some serious damage. So power outages is something that we're talking about. Trees down, something that we're talking about. Still a threat as the storm moves in closer, along with those hurricane force winds, of course, near the center of the storm. We'll just go back to the nuts and bolts here, give you the very basics. The maximum winds with Irma near the center still at 130 miles per hour. Moving north-northwest. As you kind of watch this over time, though, you'll see that the storm is still headed up the west side of the state of Florida throughout the day today. So we've had a couple people, asking questions like, oh, this just seems like a rainstorm. I haven't gotten much rain. I don't have much wind. It looks like it's any other day. That's because it's not here yet. The center of the storm is just now passing through the lower Keys. Made landfall, in fact, about an hour ago in the lower Keys, and now you can see how it is making its way northward. So likely heading up toward maybe Naples, maybe Fort Myers, but certainly up the west side of Florida. And then all of this wind and rain wrapping around it is going to be intensifying across central Florida throughout the rest of the day today and into tonight. That's where the strongest winds are now, those 130-mile-per-hour winds already north of Key West and now heading up closer to the peninsula. All the rain, though, look at all these rain bands wrapping around it. The only thing we've seen here so far are a couple of the stronger gusts, some of these rain bands, but the heaviest showers with the potential rotation still just to the south now of Brevard County, stretching over into Osceola. So along the turnpike here, there's some heavy rain. We've had several inches of rain just to the south of us down by Stewart, 8, 9, 10 inches of rain reported in some of those locations. So from now through noon, our biggest concern will be some small spin-up tornadoes and, of course, that squally weather, those rain bands wrapping around the center of the storm. Then once we get into the afternoon and tonight, as the center of the storm heads up the coast, that's when we'll start getting those hurricane gusts. And then by tomorrow morning, it's still going to be a lot of rain squalls, gusty winds until the center of the storm passes far enough north that we start to get some relief. And that will happen by about noon tomorrow. We'll start improving things gradually. But of course, you want to still stay inside once we get to tomorrow afternoon in case there are power lines down and, of course, trees down, and there's some work that will need to be done after we get through this storm. Here is Futurecast through tonight showing that storm rolling northward along the Gulf Coast. See all the heavy rain and the wind wrapping around it. That just continues all throughout the afternoon into tonight, overnight into early Monday, and until the storm heads north of us. That's when we'll finally start to clear things out once we get into the late morning through noon tomorrow, and then we'll just see a little bit of that leftover wind and rain behind the storm. The center of the storm right now is basically over Polk County, and Tony was zoomed in on the radar to the leading edge of what would be the eye, although I tell you it's starting to look more like this long sprawled out line band of wind, almost like straight line winds as opposed to actual eye of a hurricane. But we do have these feeder bands still wrapping around it, and that is our next concern for the potential tornado warnings for the rest of the morning. The center of the storm has the wind still near 100. That is, of course, in the Kissimmee area heading toward the attractions, and then we have these gusty winds in the rest of central Florida, and the whole system right now is moving to the north at 14 miles per hour. Now the official forecast brings it up basically through Sumter County, Lake County, and Marion, the center of the storm, and then it starts to lose a little bit of steam by 8 o'clock Monday morning, so in about 7 hours. But even by 8 a.m. it's still expected to have winds near the center at 75. That's still a Category 1 hurricane. And then as the storm heads up near Tallahassee to the right and east of Tallahassee, it is expected to curve a little bit to the north and west and then head up through Georgia. That's when it will start to lose a lot more of its steam as far as the winds and also the rain. But it is going to be a big rainmaker all the way up into the central part of the United States. Now, this is an interesting thing. This is something that we've been watching now for a couple of days. The line that's on the map here is the actual path, the coordinates that were taken of Irma as it's made its way northward. And this morning, about 10 minutes after 9, okay, now it's actually yesterday morning, at 9:10, the storm made landfall in the lower Keys. And then, of course, it moved northward near Naples and Marco Island. And then we've had all these kind of wobbles and jogs back and forth, but the overall movement is just kind of making its way northward, and that's what's happening with the storm right now, with all of those big hurricane force winds out around it. So that's why we've been telling you all week, all of central Florida needs to prepare for these hurricane force winds, because we're all going to be impacted in some way, but right near the center of the storm is where the biggest winds are going to be, and that's what we're getting right now in Polk County. That's what we're about to see in Lake, Sumter, Orange counties, and then as that line lifts northward, still going to be dealing with those hurricane force winds in Marion County, and then points northward until it falls apart. Now our tornado watch has gone down a little bit. It's only a couple of counties that are left. Flagler and Marion are included in that. That is for the potential for these outer bands to cause some tornado warnings. Basically, when the storm continues to lift to the north, we'll still get some rotation wrapping around it, and so that's why we've got that tornado watch that's actually in effect until 11 o'clock on Monday. So we still have several hours to go here. The strongest line, of course, right over Celebration and Kissimmee, Citrus Ridge, basically just south of Disney World and SeaWorld, Universal Orlando, 10-15 minutes away. This biggest gust of wind is moving northward, 90, 100 mile per hour gusts possible inside of there. Now, the biggest thing we need to say, I know everybody has been, stuck at home basically for a couple of days now. We've told you to stay inside and off the roads. We want to encourage you to do that on Monday. You've been cooped up. As soon as those winds start to die down at noon on Monday, you're going to want to get out and start assessing the damage. Please, please, please stay inside if you can. There's going to be trees down. We've already gotten so many reports of damage. People's houses are damaged. Their cars are damaged from the trees that are down. Power outages, power lines are down, and you can't always see them in all of the debris that's out there and the damage. So let the crews do their work tomorrow. Let them assess the damage. There's also going to be some flooding as well, so please don't drive through any of those flooded roads. Also a very dangerous situation too. So a lot of the injuries that happen after a hurricane, they don't actually happen in the hurricane. They happen after the fact when people get out too soon. So we heard the governor say it. We heard a lot of our amazing, city and county officials say it as we were leading into Irma. Please just stay inside as we continue through Monday. When the sun comes out, the winds start to die down after the noon hour. That is when you need to just let the crews do their work.